Hello, welcome back to the Affaircare series. We are introducing our new program that's going to be called 90 Days to Save Your Marriage and Save You. And to introduce you to our program, we're also going over our basic concepts. So welcome back for those who have been following with the Love Kindlers. We are here in starting up the Love Extinguishers. So just a little recap. Here at Affaircare, we do believe that love is a decision, not a feeling. So many times here in the U.S. we act like as if, oh, I've never felt like this about anybody before, and that's love. And that's not what we believe. We believe that it is a conscious action, and that it is making the choice and the decision every day to treat your spouse in a loving way. And then to understand what love extinguishers and love kindlers are, we believe that love is like a campfire, and that there are actions that a person can do that will make the fire of love grow and get hotter and more passionate. And those kind of actions, those would be love kindlers. And we went over those last week. If you would like to learn, you could look back at the podcast from last week and learn all about the love kindlers. And then there are the actions that would put out the fire. Some of the actions are smaller ones, and it's like a little cup of water, but it does kind of dampen things. Other actions are like gigantic buckets of water. That's what an affair is. It pretty much puts out the fire immediately. Those are love extinguishers because they put out the fire. And to learn a little more about our basic concepts, our very first podcast is called Intro Basic Concepts, and we go into it pretty much in depth, probably for about 15-20 minutes. And I would recommend you take a look at that one if you're interested. But today, our goal is to talk about the love extinguishers. When a couple first meets, they pretty much are acting 100% on love kindlers, because you know, the lady, that she's going to take a moment and try to look nice and fix her hair. The guy is going to wear something handsome and, you know, fix his hair too. And they go do things that are fun. There's very few love extinguishers involved. Then there's that lovely first year of marriage. And I think that's sometimes the first times when, you know, more regular love extinguishers are introduced in a relationship. You know, he squeezes the toothpaste in the middle, and then he'll say, she'll ask him, what do you want for dinner? He'll say, oh, anything. And then she'll say, okay, how about pizza? And he'll say, anything but pizza. Okay, how about Italian? Well, anything but pizza or Italian. Well, what do you want? I don't know, anything. You know. So those are the beginnings of love extinguishers, and they start to put a little bit of a damper on the love that was there, but it's still a pretty big fire, so it's cool. Then along come the kids, and the bills get bigger, and then there's a mortgage, and then they start to fight about the money. She decides to go back to school. They're spending less time together, and you can see how there's like a love extinguisher, and in the best situation, every time you put one in, you take one out, and it's not shrinking, but it's not growing. And usually, over the course of years, it's actually kind of the reverse. More and more extinguishers are being piled on. Less and less is being added to increase the fire. And the fire, instead of, it started as a blaze, it's starting to go out. And after, well, you know, I often see maybe about kind of that 10-15 year range right in there, the fire's pretty much gone. And one of them will get distracted and get into an affair, because here comes somebody who's doing, you know, kindlers. So tonight we're talking about love extinguishers, and the first one that I'm going to be talking about today is emotional neglect. So we use that term neglect when we talk about love extinguishers, because When you choose to stop acting in love and extinguish the fire of love in your marriage, you are neglecting your commitment. And thus we do include that term neglect in every one of our love extinguishers. This first one is, in a way, it's the reverse of the Love Kindler emotional commitment. In this one, not only are you not meeting your spouse's emotional need for feeling loved and secured and valued, but you're actually doing actions which are going to be harmful to their feeling of being respected or accepted. And often these are the ones that, kind of are on the verge of emotional abuse. So let me give you 4 quick examples of the kind of actions that are emotional neglect. And I have to tell you, I want you to just keep one thing in mind as we go over this tonight. And that is that I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to your spouse. I know part of your head is going to say, oh my God, my spouse does that to me all the time, or, like that, or, oh, I wish my spouse could hear this so that they would stop. I'm talking to you. You're the one who's here. You're the one who's listening. And I would like you to listen with an open heart to consider the possibility, am I doing that to my spouse? If you are, granted, they may have gone off and had an affair, and that is very hurtful, but you are still responsible for you. So I want you to look at your own, like we're told in the Bible, look at the phone pole in your own eye before you go and try to take the toothpick out of your brother's eye. In this instance, we're looking at our own phone poles. Okay, so example number 1 of emotional neglect is a person I call the scorekeeper. Now, the blatant, obvious example of this would be if you're looking at your spouse and you're like, I made the dishes and he didn't do them in return. I did the laundry and he didn't do it in his turn. You're kind of always keeping score on your spouse. It's like somehow you feel like everything has to be balanced and even, which it really doesn't. But we do like to try to keep it equal. But by the same token, where's that written? Nowhere. So this person is there's the heavier end would be a person who like literally will bring it up in fights that I do all the work and I do They're keeping track of score, and there's never the time where I'm going to do this nice thing for you because I want to give it to you as a gift in a loving way. It's always, I'm giving you this thing because I hope you'll do it back to me. I'm doing this so that I can get the upper hand on you and hold it against you then. That person, they don't, even sometimes they would, like, I'm going to start, like, kissing you and touching you, and it's not because they want to give you this lovely gift of being touched and kissed and emotionally connect. They want sex. So it's like, rather than just saying, I want sex, no, they're keeping score on you. So that's the first example of emotional neglect, where you're actually taking actions to harm that feeling of being accepted and loved. Okay, another example is a person I call the fault finder. Okay, this is a great one. I actually learned this myself, so I'll share my little story with you. When I was a younger married woman, I used to wish that my husband would, help with the child care and load the dishwasher, because I was tired and it would be nice and blah, blah, blah. And then one day, my husband was changing the baby's diaper, and I was yelling at him because he was doing it wrong. And he, I can't remember. I think he ended up with the safety pin in the back. We were doing cloth diapers, right? He ended up with the safety pin in the back, and, everything was on, but the safety pin was in the back. And I was yelling at him and stuff, and he said to me, what difference does it make? Either way, the pee gets caught. And it, hit me like a ton of bricks. He's right. Who am I to say my way is the quote-unquote right way? Maybe his way is just different. Maybe it's exactly equal, but not the same as mine, right? Same thing for loading the dishwasher. I used to wish and wish and wish that he'd load the dishwasher, and then I'd yell at him because he put, the bowls on the top and they're supposed to be on the bottom, or some crazy thing like that. Well, either way, the water splashes around and the dishes come out clean, right? So then I realized that what I was doing in real life was not like I would wish for those things, but what I do instead of like being grateful when they were done, I would look for the fault. What did they do wrong? And then that's not all. It's not like that was the end of my fault finding. No. Then when I found the fault, I was sure to broadcast it to the world. So this is the kind of thing that eventually does communicate directly to your spouse that you don't respect them. And fault finding can be anything from, like I shared, doing it wrong, to finding fault with their character, when they come and go, things that are like, they're not purposely trying to hurt you. It's just, they're a human being just like you. And you're looking for all their faults and pointing them out, and sometimes even sharing them around the world, sharing them with your friends, or gossiping about behind their back with your mother, So this is a fault finder, and that is emotional neglect. Okay, the third example that I have is a controlling person. Now, I'm sure if you went to Amazon and you typed in the topic of controlling people, there are 1,000 books out there about them and how to deal with them and everything. But let me give you the example of what a controlling person is. I often hear of people will come to me and they'll say something like this: "What do I do? My spouse is doing this." And their goal is to hear some magic word or some magic thing they can do or say that will make their spouse do something different. Basically, they want to make their spouse do what they want the spouse to do. Well, when you're acting like that, from that motivation, that is not seeing your spouse for who they are. You're looking at your spouse like as if they are just this imaginary thing that you've decided. You're looking at an image of what you want them to be, and that's not who they are. Now, granted, like in my marriage, I happen to actually marry somebody who's very close to what I would want in a partner, and I did that purposely. I picked someone that's, I had some idea of what I wanted from a partner, and ta-da, I found someone like that and I married him. But there are some things, of course, about as you get to know your spouse more that are not what you wanted. And part of being married is that commitment to say, I will learn to love and accept my spouse for who they are. So part of the marriage commitment is knowing who your spouse is, seeing it, and loving them kind of in spite of themselves. So you're a controlling person when you want your spouse to, you want to make them do what you want them to do, or you want them to be who you want them to be, or you're trying to force them to do something. But what's funny is that it really slips in a way that's kind of sometimes unrecognized by people. They will, oh, well, I want her to be better with money. Well, who, and then they'll talk to their friends and say, I just want what's best. I'm trying, and they're acting like, well, who doesn't want their spouse to be good with money? I think most anybody would say, yeah, I want my spouse to be, contributing financially and be not overspending and that kind of thing. Well, this is true, but to force your spouse to be that way is controlling. Now, if you speak to them and you give them your reasons and they think about it and they choose, oh, yes, I believe I will accept that and do that of my own accord, then that's not controlling. You've just spoken to them and they've chosen, right? So the opposite, I guess, of controlling would be where you see your spouse for who they are, you let them be different than you, and you might see them as an equal, they have equal rights to you, they have equal ability to think and make their own choices, and you may disagree with their choices, and that's okay. And that's the opposite. Controlling person, then, they don't see their spouse for who they are, They are not able to disagree. They're not able to have their own mind or their own decisions. And even in small ways, when you want your spouse to be something other than what they are, I mean, yes, you may hope that they change and grow as a human being and as a Christian, but trying to force them to do it, that's controlling. Okay, and again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and write your questions in the comments, or if you're following on the YouTube channel, you can write comments there, or likewise on iTunes, pop over to affaircare.com and write your little questions. Okay, our final example is the bottomless pit. This is a person, we're seeing more and more and more of this person. This person is the entitlement person. I'm entitled to relax. I'm entitled to have you wait on me. I'm entitled to have a beautiful home. I'm entitled to health insurance. I'm entitled to, they're entitled. They're a bottomless pit. No matter what you do, you could do everything perfect, and a little bit of fault finder comes out, they find the fault, and you didn't do enough. You buy them a dozen roses, they wanted 24. You buy them 24, they wanted pink. You know what I mean? A bottomless pit. It's never, ever enough. Okay? So, the opposite of this one would be where your spouse does something for you, and even if let's say they bought you a blue dress and you were kind of hoping for red, they took the time to find a dress that they thought was pretty. They took a time to go shopping for you. They took time to put it in a box and make it special. And are you grateful for that? Or are you a bottomless pit and you yell at them because it's blue, right? A bottomless pit person is never gets to grateful. A bottomless pit person who is emotionally neglecting their spouse is they want more. And it's like having a raindrop that drops on your head. Eventually it drives you crazy. So if any of these are kind of like resonating with you and you're like, wow, I really do this, I want you to do two things. The first quick thing, I do want you to pray about it and ask God for forgiveness. Ask Him to help you, to change your heart and change your actions. Okay? So that's the first thing. You've got to get right with God, because this is not the way that He wants us to behave with each other. He wants us to behave in a loving way and in a respectful way. Number two, talk to your spouse about it. Okay? Now, what happens a lot of times, people will say, well, my spouse did this. But what your spouse did wrong is not license nor justification for you to behave wrong. You also are responsible for yourself, your actions, and your choices just the same as they are. So if you find that you're doing this, get right with God, number one. But number two, talk to your spouse about it. And figure out some ways, what do you have to do in order to change and be a different person. You want to stop being the scorekeeper, the fault finder, the controller, and the bottomless pit. And you want to start becoming the person who is loving, respectful, admiring, and grateful. So how can you do that? I would suggest, as an example, it's going to feel unnatural at first, but that's okay because you're changing a habit. And I would suggest that you say, I'm going to get in the habit of doing once a day, and whatever your thing is. Like if you're a scorekeeper, no matter what, I'm going to get in the habit of once a day doing something purely as a gift, and I never ever will get anything back for it. Okay? If you're a fault finder, I want you to find one thing they did right. See how you're changing? It's like not only do you stop the bad thing, but you start the good thing. Okay? If you're a controller, I want you to take one thing today where you recognize your spouse and you say, I'm going to let them disagree, or I acknowledge that they disagree with me, and they're allowed to do that. Okay? And then if you're a bottomless pit person, I want you to take one time a day, one thing that you are grateful for that they did today, and say it out loud. Every one of these things, what happens sometimes, we think them in our heads. Oh, that was nice, thanks. But we don't say it out loud, so they never hear it, and also our own ears never hear it. So, take the little assignment, and today would be a great day to stop being an emotionally neglectful person, and start honoring your emotional commitment to honor your spouse, honor your marriage vows, and love your spouse. So, okay, tomorrow we'll be going over spiritual neglect, which does have to do with neglecting your spouse's spiritual welfare. And I look forward to seeing you then tomorrow. All right, great. Thank you so much. Hope you had a great night. Bye-bye.